What do you do when your favorite podcaster talks about your favorite topic? Well, you watch the episode and then you break it down. I'm not talking about the Joe Pometto Law Show. For all my loyal fans out there, I know I'm your favorite podcast, and seeing me talk about sovereign citizens, auditors, the First Amendment, and legal cases is your favorite thing in the world. I'm talking about my favorite podcast besides my own. And the podcast I'm talking about is the Joe Rogan Experience. Much to my surprise, popped up in my YouTube was a Joe Rogan Experience clip where he talks about sovereign citizens. Now, in the episode, it's him and another comedian, Brian Redban, and they get onto the topic of sovereign citizens. So we're going to break down what was said in that Joe Rogan episode. But before we begin, if you like my content, please subscribe, comment, like, and share. It's a free way to support the show. I also have a Patreon. Become a patron. It will unlock exclusive features for you, and it also helps me to make a little bit of income off this, which I can use to free up time to make more videos for the content that you love. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Patreon. Now, before we get into the meat, let's deal with our other favorite experience on this show, and that is the same time sip. Today, because it's a weekend, it's a Sunday morning, I went out and I got some Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I'm sure a lot of you like Dunkin'. Maybe you just like their donuts. Maybe you like their coffee. I like both. Okay, let's do the same time sip. I got a little cream and sugar here. Mm. And that is delicious. Oh, one more thing. I mean, if you like straight black coffee, you got to get the reserve blends at Starbucks. A lot of you maybe don't like Starbucks. I like coffee from anywhere, but their reserve blend is made with a special process. You drink that black. Oh my God, it is so good. Okay, so let's break down this Joe Rogan clip when he talks about sovereign citizens. Now, I can't show you that clip here because of copyright, trademark type stuff. YouTube would probably knock me out of the park over this one. I imagine Joe Rogan's pretty vigilant about that. So I'm just going to talk about the clip, all right? And I'm going to put it down in the description. You can go and watch it and then come back and watch my video, or watch my video, then watch and see what Joe Rogan has to say on the topic. I think it's a lot of fun because we cover so many sovereign citizens here. And it is the Brian Redban episode. It's Joe Rogan Experience 1364. So they sort of randomly jump onto the topic of sovereign citizens. And when Brian Redban brings it up, Joe Rogan's like, what? And Brian Redban says sovereign citizens. Joe Rogan goes, what? What's that? Like, he never heard of them. Funny thing about Joe, I love Joe, but like, he doesn't, he's in his own little universe, so he's never heard of sovereign citizens, etc. And Brian Redban says, yeah, you've never seen these guys. He sees them on live PD all the time. How many of you watch live PD? I got to start tuning in because I have not been watching it. It's a live version of Cops. I mean, I might get cable just to watch this show. I could learn a lot from it too as a defense attorney. But yeah, so apparently, and Redban says that they have one or two of them on every episode, and I totally believe it because it's just such an interesting and hilarious and also dangerous and scary phenomenon with the sovereign citizens and watching the police interact with them. I mean, you guys all know that's what we're here for. A large part is to get a kick out of it. And, he talks about how a lot of these guys, they go and they they get their sovereign citizen script from the internet. And I guess in some of the videos, I don't know if we've seen many of these, they'll be like reading, I am the agent and settler, or, oh, I have the right to travel according to the 1744 lawsuit of blah, 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 while the cops are shaking them down and question them. I mean, it's just too much. It's just too much. So that's what Brian Redban talks about. And Jamie, who is Rogan's producer gets into it a little bit too. He's familiar with live PD. He's familiar with the sovereign citizen movement. And the interesting thing is Joe says when they're going into this, and I don't think he really gets the whole thing behind it, and they didn't get that deep into it, just a surface level analysis. He says, Joe goes, it's uniquely satisfying when a guy knows his rights, talks to the police, and ends up driving off. And you know what? I agree with that. But Joe's misguided here because these sovereign citizens don't know their rights. They know fake rights, okay? And they're spouting off fake law. When an individual is in the car and could say, well, officer A, B, C, D, something I could do, or an attorney could do, or even regular citizens who read up on it, yeah, that impresses me as well, okay? But they're talking about the law. Well, the state code actually says this, or federal law preempts the state law, and this is what the federal law says. Or actually, officer, you're a little off on the law, okay? That doesn't happen too often. It happens. A lot of times the officers just wanted to let the people go. Truth of the matter is the officers are very well trained in the law and generally, and in how it applies in those situations. And they may be wrong, and oftentimes they are wrong. But those are few. It's just that's a different scenario than the sovereign citizen, the person who knows their rights. And that's what I try to do is inform people of their rights is different than the sovereign citizen who creates fake rights, okay? The right to travel as the sovereign citizen interprets it is not real. So Joe kind of slid out there again because I don't think he truly understands what the sovereign citizen movement is. They talk about when they pull over the DA, and yeah, that's always in the news when a DA or a judge gets pulled over, and they'll try to pull rank on the officers. And good for these officers who stand firm because the law needs to be applied equally to everyone. It's one thing if a person can say, well, I didn't actually violate the law, and the officer's mind gets changed. It's another thing when a district attorney or a judge or a lawyer is asking for special favors. Okay, I'll give you all a little scenario. I was pulled over once, and I was speeding because I was late to court. Imagine that, an attorney late to court. Wouldn't happen. I was speeding, and an officer pulled me over in the parking lot of the magistrate's office. And he comes up to me and he says, what's going on? He sees I'm in a suit and tie and I have my briefcase. And I said, officer, I said, I said, you're going to laugh. I said, but I'm a defense attorney and I'm going to this magistrate right up the street. And I was running late and I was speeding, and I understand and I recognize it. And, he seemed a little annoyed at first, and I told him, I was like, I got court right over there. I said, let me, can I call over and let them know? Because I am extremely polite in my dealings with police. And the officer, he walked back to his car and he came back over and he said, look, man, he said, I'm going to give you a warning. He said, watch yourself going forward and try to make it to court on time in the future. And I said, I appreciate it, officer. I didn't try to pull rank as an attorney. I just told him what was going on, and he ended up giving me a warning and letting him go. What some of these DAs do, or even attorney, talk to them like they're children, try to belittle them, okay, and that's just the wrong way to go about things. So one thing that Joe did get into is he was like, look, and I think he had a little grasp of the sovereign citizen, was if the police pull you over and they need to see your license, they need to see your license, okay? They're out there trying to, there's people who's committed crimes, have warrants out, homicides, drug dealing, organized crime. Their vehicle matches that description. You got to show the ID. It's just common sense. And I thought it was funny as he said, what do we want to live in a world where everybody's driving around with masks on, driving around, with no ID, wearing masks, and no speed limits? And that cracked me up, because you're talking about people driving on neighborhood streets doing 90 miles per hour, wearing masks, and the police have no right to pull them over. That's the sovereign citizen world. That is the sovereign citizen world. That's the world they want to create. You can't pull people over. You can't ask them for ID. Everybody can just zoom through the streets, do whatever the hell you want. They're anarchists, ladies and gentlemen. They're anarchists. Anarchy. So it just ain't going to happen, and it can't happen, and it never works in court. And then Joe got onto another interesting topic. I know we're going a little bit longer here. And because the sovereign citizen movement historically has its roots in the tax protesters, he was talking about people who went to jail or were prosecuted for taxes. Wesley Snipes, Lauryn Hill. They put Lauryn Hill in jail for 3 months for not paying her taxes, and Joe kept saying, lock in a cage, lock in a cage. Well, it's true. When you go to jail, they lock you in a cage. That's true. But it is kind of funny. I mean, these people made money and then just didn't give their share of the money up. And it wasn't enough that they pay the money back, okay? The IRS wants their pound of flesh, okay? You got to go to jail. They want to see you punished, especially when you're high profile like that. They're not going to let you get away. So, word of advice to everybody, and I'm behind a little bit. I'm behind a little bit on my taxes, okay? They've been, well, we got a deal though. I'm working with them. But pay your taxes. Most people don't have a problem with it because they're employees and it comes right out. Pay your taxes. The IRS will be after you. And as you all well know, the sovereign citizen shtick ain't going to work when the IRS shows up at your door. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Everybody check out Joe Rogan, episode 1364. It'll be in the description. He's talking with Ryan Red Band. They get on the topic of sovereign citizens. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. I got a Patreon. One more same time sip. Joe Pometto Law out.